I recently revisited Uncharted 4 for the first time since its release almost 10 years ago, and afterwards I found myself with mixed feelings, particularly in regards to the elements that have defined the Uncharted series outside of their stories: the climbing, puzzles, and shootouts. It's not that they've suddenly become bad, far from it. It's that each of these parts now feels old and formulaic. In the 10 years since the release of A Thief's End, video games and the industry have evolved. The set pieces now feel too scripted, the climbing too predictable, the shootouts too repetitive. And I recognize that these feel formulaic in part because Naughty Dog and Uncharted created the formula. What I really want to talk about in this video though is the story. Revisiting it after nearly a decade gave me new appreciation for what the game's message is, but also sharper criticism of how it's being delivered through the characters and overall narrative. My shift in feelings towards Uncharted 4 from it being one of my favorite games to now feeling much more critical towards it is what this video will explore in detail. So consider this your spoiler warning for the entire series, Uncharted 1 through 4, but also The Lost Legacy. I don't go into as much detail with the other games besides A Thief's End, but I do make passing references to parts of each of them, so you've been warned. Uncharted 4: A Thief's End was developed by Naughty Dog and released in May of 2016. At the time, it was the fifth entry in the Uncharted series, following Drake's Fortune in 2007, Among Thieves in 2009, and finally Drake's Deception in 2011. All of these originally released for PlayStation 3. The fourth game is titled Golden Abyss and was also released in 2011 but on the PlayStation Vita handheld. I haven't played this entry in the series because Golden Abyss seems to be largely forgotten by Sony Entertainment, which I only say because at the time of recording almost 14 years later, it remains trapped on Vita and unplayable on any other modern console. As I've stated, Uncharted 4 is, or perhaps was, depending on what happens with the series in the future, supposed to serve as the ending to the Nathan Drake saga of the series. This should be clear from the get-go with the game's subtitle, A Thief's End. It's also further reinforced by the release of Uncharted: The Lost Legacy in 2017, which focused on two returning characters from the series going on their own adventure. I played The Lost Legacy, and despite enjoying it, I don't intend to make a full video over it. I do share a few of my thoughts on it throughout this video, specifically as they relate to Uncharted 4. Outside of The Lost Legacy, the Uncharted series narratively focuses on the adventures of fortune hunter Nathan Drake as he travels the globe in pursuit of legendary treasures and/or mystical cities. This always turns into a race to find the treasure before some nefarious group does, who will use it nefariously. Accompanying Nate on these globe-trotting adventures are Elena Fisher and Victor Sullivan, who goes by Sully. While Nathan Drake is charming and fun, it's these two characters that are key to the series' success in my opinion. Elena often serves as the voice of reason and grounding force in the adventures. She starts as Nate's tag-along love interest and eventually becomes his partner and wife. This evolution of their relationship and the responsibility that comes with it ends up playing a large role in Uncharted 4. Sully is Nate's mentor, and although never outright stated, I also interpret him as a father figure to Nate, who we know's own father abandoned him. Sully is wise and has a dry sense of humor, but he's also dependable and clearly cares about Nate's well-being. His role becomes deeply entwined with Elena's role in the story of Uncharted 4, as both characters get pushed to the side with the introduction of Nathan's brother Sam. Uncharted has always had good side characters like Chloe Frazier and Charlie Cutter, but at its core the series is about Nathan and his relationships with Elena and Sully. Uncharted 4 suffers, in my opinion, because it sidelines these two characters that we've grown quite fond of for large chunks of the story in favor of more interactions with a character that is brand new, the brother Sam Drake, whose motivations we as the player might doubt even when our character Nate doesn't. This is obviously an intentional design decision and meant to invoke these feelings. Naughty Dog are smart developers like that. On the other hand, though, the whole game is based upon the sudden reappearance of this long-lost brother, a brother who up to this point has never been mentioned in any of the prior games. I don't immediately hate this either. Nathan having a brother was an idea created for Uncharted 4, but as long as it's written well and makes sense, then I'm happy to suspend disbelief about why it's never been mentioned before. To be clear, that doesn't mean you can just wave the problem away. The explanation of why it hasn't been mentioned before still needs to get addressed, hopefully in a satisfactory way. Unfortunately, we don't get a satisfactory answer in my opinion, but we'll get there. For the most part, Sam is just an okay addition to Uncharted. Across my playthroughs, I never ended up liking him though. Right from the first chapter, I didn't care for him, and that feeling persisted the entire game and through my replay. Originally, I thought that was the point. We aren't meant to like Sam. We're meant to feel similarly to Elena and Sully. Sam, by squeezing himself between our three characters, is a narrative device to create tension between the core three and for us the player. I feel less certain about this interpretation now though, given Sam's inclusion as one of the main characters in The Lost Legacy. His Magnum PI Hawaiian shirt and sunglasses say to me that maybe Naughty Dog didn't expect players to not like Sam, and so they wanted another attempt to endear him to players when the big three characters weren't around. I don't know though, that's just speculation. What I hope this video will illustrate is that Sam is responsible for the majority of the narrative problems in A Thief's End. But on the other hand, he's also the reason why many of the game's themes pack the emotional punch that they do. A Thief's End has some really compelling themes: the allure of adventure, the desire to define one's own legacy, the potential cost of obsession, knowing when to walk away. Even the subtitle, A Thief's End, can be read in different ways. These themes are present right from the start with the game's opening quote, "I am a man of fortune and I must seek my fortune." The Uncharted series has a history of opening with a reflective quote. It's actually part of the formula I really like and find impactful. A Thief's End's quote from Captain Henry Avery, the central historic figure of the game, is actually my favorite in the series because of how well it circles back into the game's message of adventure, legacy, and obsession. Following the opening quote, there's a flash forward to a brief action set piece from later in the game. Nathan, and who we'll learn later is Nathan's older brother Sam, are racing towards an island in the distance. A storm rages around them and a mercenary organization is in pursuit. It's not quite the spectacle of either 2 or 3's openings, and actually more closely resembles the first games, where Nate and Elena must defend their small boat from pirates. Players learn the basics of the gun combat here, and the sequence ends with the brothers' boat getting rammed and turned over amongst the storm. The scene then flashes back to a much younger Nathan getting scolded by a nun at the orphanage where he lives.
I don't see why I'm the only one being punished.
Because you started the fight.
He wouldn't give me back my book.
I told you to leave those books in your room. You only have yourself to blame.
Doesn't give him the right to just snatch it from me.
Does that give you the right to start throwing punches?
It wasn't just about the book.
What was it then?
Nothing. I'll save it for confession.
Besides thinking that it's absolutely wild that the nun is victim blaming Nate for his books getting stolen, It's the emotion that gets me in this scene. It hurts. Nate is clearly alone. He's a kid, and you can see that he is on the verge of tears and has more that he wants to say, but doesn't because he doesn't feel like he can trust adults. We'll learn that Nate and Sam's mother committed suicide, and that their father abandoned them at this orphanage shortly after. This makes Nathan's relationship with Sully feel more special, as he was an adult who earned Nate's trust. This is also a scene that for me is excellent because it adds context to why in earlier games, Nate goes back and forth on committing to Elena. He has a fear of abandonment, and similar to real life, fear of abandonment often leads to fear of commitment. Following this, the game officially introduces Nathan's older brother Sam, who shows up to rescue Nate for the night.
What is that? Really? Again?
It's nothing.
You told me you'd stay out of trouble, though.
He was talking shit about us.
So?
He said that Dad dumped us here because we're worthless, and Mom is in hell because—
Nathan, come on. They're just saying it because it gets to you, all right? You just gotta learn to laugh it off.
You wouldn't.
As I stated right from the jump, I didn't like Sam. His introduction contrasts against Elena's and Sully's, who were both immediately likable. Again, this was clearly the point, to make the player doubt Sam's character.
I got this job. Pays well. Really well. But, I gotta leave town for a little bit.
What's a little bit?
Like, a year. At the most, and then I'll be back before you even know it, all right?
You're bailing on me.
Come on, don't be so dramatic.
What, so it wasn't bad enough to leave me in that place?
The scene continues with Sam revealing that he's tracked down the buyer of their mother's belongings, and he wants to bring Nate with him to steal some of the items back. We'll get to the second half of this flashback with the young brothers later in the game, but as it is right here, it lays the foundation for these two's relationship. Nate depends on Sam. Outside of introducing Sam and their relationship, this whole segment of escaping the orphanage serves as the game's tutorial for climbing. We get introduced to a version of the grappling hook and sliding mechanics that got added to climbing in A Thief's End. We then get another time jump to when the brothers are older and being held in a Panamanian prison. It actually opens with Nate getting punched in the face during a prison yard fight, which immediately brought a smile to my face. This flashback sequence is largely foundational. It sets up what treasure and historical figure the story will focus on.
I was a member of Captain Henry Avery's crew. You know who that is?
He was a pirate.
The pirate who pulled off the biggest heist in history and got away with it. I looked him up.
That's great.
Over $400 million worth of gold and jewels, all from one single ship. The Gunsway.
Yeah, I'm familiar with the story.
It sets up Rafe Adler as the villain by first showing him as a once ally of the Drake brothers.
Digna factus recipimus. We receive
the due rewards of our deeds.
Yeah. Look at you.
It's a benefit of growing up in a Catholic orphanage.
And it sets up why Sam has been absent and never mentioned in the series up to this point.
Sam, no. No, you hold on! Hold on! Sam! Give me your other arm! Come on, reach! No! Sam!
It does all of these to varying degrees of success. For starters, the historical angle of Captain Avery and the Gunsway heist is excellent. Having the game focus on pirates, something that Nathan even admits later that him and Sam basically are, is a great choice.
You know, we became explorers, adventurers, mostly thieves. Ow.
Okay, just hold still.
It's a perfect fit for a game that's focused on these characters' obsession with treasure, adventure, and legacy. Learning what happened to Captain Avery and the other pirates later in the game was also often more interesting to me than what was happening with Nate and Sam. Now, speaking of Sam, let's discuss him getting shot and supposedly killed during their prison escape. So at some point prior to the events here, Nathan and Sam recover a letter written by Joseph Burns, the man who served as Captain Avery's first mate. In the letter, Burns describes his holding in the highest cell of a Panamanian prison. The modern prison is built near the ruins Burns was imprisoned in, and the Drake brothers have been trying to figure out how to gain access for some time. Rafe Adler was ultimately the key. Because of his wealth, he was able to bribe the prison warden, named Vargas, and ensure some level of freedom and safety to check out the ruins. Which do give another clue. Nathan solves a simple puzzle involving matching zodiac signs to numbers and finds a cross of Saint Dismas that Burns had hidden away within the cell.
That's St. Dismas.
Yeah, the penitent thief. But what's the connection?
Guys, let's just pretend I skipped all of Sunday school.
During the crucifixion, Jesus is placed between two thieves, okay? One of them mocked Jesus. The other one, this guy, was penitent. He accepted his punishment with grace.
And Jesus brought him to paradise.
Penitent thief.
Yeah.
This all leads to Vargas learning too much and getting greedy, demanding an additional portion of the treasure at the end. Vargas is also right to be angry, as right as someone blackmailing a group of thieves can be. Rafe kills the warden, who fires his gun during the struggle, and it sets in motion the frantic escape through the prison that ends in Sam's supposed death. Let's start with the obvious. Killing Vargas makes the characters look stupid. He's the only one that knows Nate, Sam, and Rafe don't belong in the prison, so killing him makes no sense. Especially because they could easily just tell him what he wants to hear and then kill him later, or just tell him to fuck off once out of the prison. What is he gonna do, report them? We even see Nathan already kind of doing this when he comes up with something to keep Vargas busy.
There any plans to this place? Like blueprints?
Could be. There's a bunch of old files.
Okay, great. Go look through those, okay? See what you can dig up. Meanwhile, I'll talk to Sam. He's our Avery expert. Maybe he can make sense of this whole mess.
Right. I'll look through the files.
Yeah.
Vargas has to die because narratively there needs to be some reason for the prison to erupt into chaos so that Sam can be killed in that chaos. This part of the writing actually is smart. For the Nathan thought Sam was dead explanation to work, his death needs to be somewhere Nate can witness it, but can't easily access afterwards. Sam needs to be able to live, which with these being gunshot wounds, a hospital is likely needed and a prison would have one. And finally, there needs to be a reason that Sam can't reach back out to Nathan, which again, a prison makes sense. The execution of it is what's sloppy. An easy solution would have been to just have Vargas decide to betray them. It would even be consistent with what we see of his character. He could take the cross and tell his guards to lock them up. He thinks he can solve the puzzle himself, but will keep the characters locked up just in case he needs them. This would make Vargas the aggressor and force Rafe's hand in killing him. One thing that the current writing does highlight is how expendable Rafe treats those around him once they're no longer of use. Rafe is funding the Drake brothers and is clearly out of his own depth with locating Avery's treasure, something that we see reinforced in the present. Seeing him coldly murder Vargas here is a warning to the brothers. Rafe as a villain is better than I think he gets credit for. His motivations make sense. He's a rich kid who so desperately wants to be taken seriously in this treasure hunting space. To have a legacy, he doesn't have much value outside of his money and resources, and he knows this, yet doesn't want to believe it. It's why he puts himself in the Panamanian jail with the Drakes, despite not needing to be there. It's why after the jail, he spends 15 years searching for the next clue unsuccessfully. He wants to prove to everyone, including himself, that he is relevant. He's a great reflection for the Drake brothers, and his final monologue is one of the more impactful parts of the ending. He's more interesting than any of the other villains in the series, in my opinion. The flashback ends with Nathan and Rafe escaping, and we get the opening credits for the game, with stylish drawings of scenes from the prior games flashing throughout. It marks the end of the extended prologue and leads us into the first act of the game. "15 years have passed and we take control of Nathan in the present as he's scuba diving. It's a sequence that briefly teases perhaps Nate is still in the adventuring lifestyle before revealing that it's actually part of his new job. He works for a salvaging company. It's an important scene because it establishes where Nathan is at in his new life, specifically how bored he is. He's a fortune hunter no more. He's finally gone straight after the events of the previous 3 games. A thief's end. A penitent thief. It's no coincidence that Saint Dismas, the good thief, has such a prominent role in the game's narrative. His boss, Jameson, talks to him about an unlicensed salvage job in Malaysia, but Nate is now so adverse to anything that might lead him back to his old lifestyle that he declines.
Okay, I don't know about you, but I don't want to be working salvage when I'm 60. Do you?
Sure beats prison.
This is Nathan's central conflict, the push and pull between his desire for a normal life with Elena and the lingering allure of adventure. Each of the prior games concludes with Nate and Elena getting together, but then the next one opens with them separated as Nate gets pulled into a new adventure. A Thief's End shows that this pattern is something that Nathan is aware of and is making an effort to address. The pull towards adventure is still there, but for now it's being suppressed. Relegated to toy gun target shooting and a collection of relics in their attic. As Elena and Nate eat dinner, she can clearly pick up on the fact that he's distracted and restless. When the Malaysia job comes up, she encourages him to do it even without the proper permits.
Look, Nate, I really think that you should take it.
You know what? I don't want it. Really. I mean, he doesn't have the permits. And we agreed we're not going to take that kind of work anymore. It's just not worth it.
It doesn't sound that risky. All right? If it's just a permit.
No way.
It's clear to me that while the pair have likely discussed a dialing back on mystical cities and warlord adventures, that it's Nate's own self-imposed suppression of these feelings that is driving his restlessness. He's afraid of repeating the cycle that costs him Elena. This also isn't to say that he's unhappy with Elena. They appear to have a great marriage. It's more that he's resigned himself to a quieter life than he's used to. These feelings naturally get put to the test then when the following morning Sam makes his grand reappearance after 15 years.
Yeah, I'm, looking for my little brother. It's about your height, a little bit leaner. Definitely less gray in the temples.
Sam?
It's good to see you again, Nathan.
God, Sam.
Oh, all right. Take it easy.
Nathan is obviously surprised and confused about how Sam survived given that he, Nathan, thoroughly checked afterwards. The writing kind of brushes past this, with Sam stating that they killed a guard and that the other guards wanted to see him rot because of that. Nate and Rafe worked together for some time after the prison, and you're telling me Rafe couldn't be persuaded to use some of his money to check if Sam was alive? Some guard wouldn't have been tempted by that? I don't buy this, but let's continue. Nate and Sam begin catching up, Nate telling Sam about his adventures, and Sam telling Nate how he escaped from the prison. Let's start with Nathan. He recaps off-screen the events of the first 3 games, but manages to detail those events without mentioning once that he's married. He starts with the very beginning of the first game and finding Sir Francis Drake's coffin, an event that Elena, his now wife, was present at. He apparently goes through all of his adventures, most of which Elena was a part of, even referencing her, yet doesn't tell his brother that he's married.
Engagement ring. I'm married. I can't believe... Elena from the stories, that's my wife.
He's clearly excited to have his brother back, and the adventures are clearly what they bond over, yet he doesn't appreciate Elena enough to mention that she's his wife until it's as an afterthought. This scene demonstrates how much he misses the adventuring lifestyle. He's like a pot of water ready to boil over when just a bit of heat is applied. While Nathan isn't a villain, he is an asshole here. Sam says, "You managed to walk away with nothing," and Nate says, "That's the story of my life," which should reflect harshly on him. What he learned at the end of each of those previous adventures is that Elena is always there for him, and that she's more important than any trinket or artifact. On the other side of this, Nathan reveals that he has never told Elena about Sam, which is shitty and also hard to believe. We see in the attic that Nathan has the St. Dismas cross from the prison and his mother's journal, which includes a picture Sam and him took when they were young. In the entire time Nathan and Elena have known each other, he's never mentioned Sam, or apparently his family, because it seems like a brother would come up. And Elena never asked about it or asked about his family. She never stumbled upon this picture before. The only thing I find harder to believe is that Nate and Elena apparently keep their house at 88 degrees. Narratively, he has to have omitted talking about his brother because otherwise we'd have heard about Sam prior to this. I understand this, but it's still a plot hole. It's what I meant earlier by not getting a satisfying explanation for the sudden reappearance of the long-lost brother. Now, Sam's side of the story, while better, is only better because it doesn't matter. Sam has been in prison for 15 years, and according to him, for at least the most recent part of that, he was cellmates with a notorious drug kingpin named Hector Alcazar. During that time, Sam tells Alcazar the story of Captain Avery's Gunsway heist, and Alcazar is impressed.
I am a man of fortune, and I must seek my fortune.
I like how he thinks.
What the hell was that?
The opportunity of a lifetime.
The drug lord's organization has orchestrated a violent prison rescue for him, and Alcazar extends the invitation for Sam to escape with him. The drug lord, his men, and Sam shoot their way through the prison as it enters into a full riot, but they're able to get away in a van. This is where the other shoe drops for Sam. The brutal drug lord wasn't just helping him out to be a chill guy, but rather because he wants half of Avery's treasure when Sam finds it. He puts pressure on Sam and gives him just 3 months to locate the treasure or else he'll kill him. This brings us back to the present with Sam finding Nathan in order to get his help locating the treasure. A problem that Nathan himself points out is that there's not any leads for them to follow.
Sam, there's no trail. After Rafe and I escaped, he took his parents' fortune and bought up all the land around St. Dismas Cathedral. We combed that place for weeks. Avery's treasure isn't there. Not that that stopped Rafe. The moron's been digging for years, still hasn't turned up squat.
This doesn't faze Sam though, as he reveals that an auction is taking place at a wealthy estate in Italy in 3 days, where an intact St. Dismas cross is on the bidding block. See, Nathan and Rafe were missing something. The cross they found in Panama all those years ago was broken and hollow. Sam believes that this one, since it's intact, contains something inside, like a clue that could provide more information on where to look next. Nate is excited by this. After just a bit of hesitation, and after being buttered up by Sam, he calls Elena not to explain everything rationally, but to lie to her.
Yeah, listen, you're not gonna believe this. Jameson just walked in here with the permits. Yeah. I know, but, looks like I'm gonna take that Malaysia job after all.
Now, it probably sounds too convenient that this auction just so happens to be occurring so soon after Sam's escape, or that surely if there was this recent big violent prison riot where a notorious drug lord nicknamed the Butcher of Panama escaped, it would be on the news.
It can't be a coincidence.
But there's actually an explanation here, and it's that Sam is a liar. If you've played the game, then you know this already, but for the structure of the video, I'm going to jump ahead to the reveal right now. So about halfway through the game's final act, the villains, Rafe and Nadine, confront the Drake brothers on Avery's island.
You want to find Avery's treasure? We'll help you find it.
And in exchange, I let you live?
Yeah. That and a small cut.
The gauchos on this guy.
Just enough to get him his freedom, okay?
His freedom?
Nathan.
Yeah. He did hard time. Our time. And the guy who broke him out, Hector Alcazar, he owes him a lot of money.
Whoa, what the hell are you talking about, Nate? Hector Alcazar died in a shootout in Argentina like 6 months ago. I'm the one that got Samuel out. Oh. Wow. What did he tell you? Sam, what kind of story did you cook up? Alcazar? Really? You lied? You lied to your baby brother?
We're wasting time.
Just a second. Thing is, Nate, I never stopped looking for Avery's treasure. I just kept running into these dead ends. And then I hear that our dear old Samuel Drake, an authority on Avery, is alive and somewhat well. There was no breakout. I bribed the prison warden, and your brother, he just waltzed right out the front gate. He spent the last 2 years tracking down a second St. Dismas cross. You know what? He did it all with me.
No.
Oh, yeah?
No, that's bullshit.
Oh. Sam, care to refute?
Nate.
Oh, Sam. Jesus, no.
Listen, Avery's treasure was ours. It was always ours.
I left my life for you.
Taken at face value, this reveal is not just a good one, but a great one for many reasons. It frames everything that Sam has done up to this point in a much more sinister light. Back at the salvage office, Sam listens to everything Nate tells him about his new life, yet still decides to go through with the lie.
Oh, man, Sam, there's got to be another way.
Not with the time I got left. Certainly not with Alcazar.
By not telling him the truth, he puts Nathan's new life with Elena, as well as just his life in general, in danger. There's an excellent scene we'll get to later where Elena calls Nate out on this, and that if he died, she'd have no idea where he was. During the reveal, Sam tries to say that this treasure is his and Nate's, no one else's, that's more or less why he felt justified in lying. He's obsessed. This twist perfectly frames Sam with all of the game's themes: obsession with adventure and legacy, not knowing when to walk away, and that this time it really could be a thief's end. It flips Sam into one of the villains. It doesn't stay that way, and this also isn't to say that the blame for all of Nate's problems rest squarely at Sam's feet. Nathan has all these same desires and traits, but has just been ignoring them rather than trying to find a real solution. Sam and Nathan are two sides of the same coin, with Sam potentially foreshadowing what life looks like if Nate wants to continue down this road. Another good thing that this reveal does is provide context for us, the player, about these coincidences. It's not just that the auction is conveniently happening right as he's getting out of jail, it's that he's been working for Rafe for 2 years researching the second cross and is looping Nathan in right before. The prison break wasn't missed, it's that it never occurred, nor was the ruthless Alcazar actually his cellmate. It was a lie that Sam used to create pressure and force Nate into quickly acting. Now, while understanding that the whole story being a lie fixes the inconsistencies that we the player may notice, it doesn't explain why Nate himself doesn't notice these inconsistencies. Why doesn't Nate realize that there are just too many coincidences happening? Specifically with Alcazar and the prison riot, he would have easily learned it was a lie if he had done an internet search. This is actually something the writers thought of themselves and had Nate make a comment about.
Plus, he needed time to come up with that crazy Alcazar story. I mean, if I had just looked it up.
Here's an analogy. Let's say that you're walking with a friend and they point out that a bit further along, there's a pile of dog shit on the sidewalk. Now, despite pointing it out themselves, your friend still steps in the pile of shit. You would likely be confused, right? Why didn't they avert the problem that they themselves noticed? So, does a developer pointing out their own shit make it okay for them to still step in it? Because that's what happened here. I would say no. Listen, everyone makes mistakes. It's impossible to be or create something that's perfect, but it's important to at least attempt to fix the problems you yourself realize. It's understandable if Nathan is so caught up in his brother's reappearance that he misses all of the lies and coincidences himself, but Sully and Elena wouldn't. Sully, towards the beginning, even seems suspicious of Sam's intentions, which should worry players. We know Sully, we trust Sully. This doesn't end up leading to anything because it can't. If Sully looked up Alcazar early on, then the plot can't happen. If Elena learns about Sam prior to them leaving for the adventure, she'd likely uncover his lies, and the plot couldn't happen. This is what I meant earlier by the sidelining of these two characters. I think the Alcazar red herring could have worked if there just really had been a prison riot that occurred, but that Sam wasn't actually a part of it. He simply uses it for his escape story. This would have allowed the prison riot to be something the characters had heard about previously, but not be able to specifically fact-check that Sam escaped during. It's a lie that's based around a kernel of truth. It could also lead to Rafe sniffing around about the prison and learning that Sam was still alive. This leaves the core twist intact while also allowing for Sully and Elena to be more involved, even potentially incorporating their suspicions into the narrative to add to the story as opposed to derailing it. The next two chapters see Nathan, Sam, and Sully infiltrate the auction at the Rossi estate in Italy. This is now the first part of the Avery treasure hunt that is occurring in the present. It's really the first true segment of the game, as it includes almost all of the gameplay elements. A lot of climbing, stealth, eventually gunplay, and even a smaller scale set piece. It's really only missing puzzles. I like the auction, even if narratively these chapters feel like the game is treading water. Their point outside of being the first real slice of gameplay is to 1. Introduce the second antagonist Nadine Ross, 2. To give the next clue for the treasure hunt, and 3. To reintroduce Sully. Which is something that made me happy even when Sam started bitching about it at the start of the mission.
Alright, fine. Good, say it.
What if he stole the cross for himself?
Not in a million years.
Victor Sullivan. Same Victor we're talking about, right?
Yes, he's double-crossed people in the past, but not us.
No, not you.
I know you two have never seen eye to eye.
Huge understanding.
But I trust him, all right? He's family. No.
The conversations between the brothers here are generally good, which shouldn't be a surprise. The side conversations in Naughty Dog games are generally always good, especially when it's thoughtful comments that flesh out a character.
All those years. It's the little things that you miss the most.
Like what?
The smell of fresh citrus. Riding the motorcycle. It's little things, but they add up.
The Uncharted series does creep into quippy territory, especially when the dialogue feels written to just fill the silence.
I wonder if they host weddings.
Oh yeah, they're a full-service site. Weddings, bar mitzvahs, Black market auctions. But do they have a DJ? Okay, just like riding a bike. Several hundred feet in the air.
These bridges are clearly not built to code.
Sure they are. The pirate code.
Ha 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 ha. Not bad.
That's not to say I didn't laugh at any of Uncharted 4's jokes, I'm not a robot. There's also a couple of scenes during the approach of the Rossi estate between Nate and Sam involving throwing a grappling hook that I enjoyed, just to name a few. Returning to the narrative, Sully, through his contacts, was able to secure an invitation for the auction and uses his position to unlock a window for the Drake brothers. Once inside, Sully mentions that there's a wrinkle in their plan.
That's Avery's cross.
They brought it out of storage just before you guys got here.
They changed the lot order.
Take a whole pile of cash to make that happen.
Right, well, how long before they start the bidding?
10, 15 minutes tops.
They come up with an adjustment to tamper with the lights during the bidding in order to create an opportunity for them to steal the cross. Nate is in charge of shutting out the electricity, a disguised Sam will actually steal the cross, and Sully is the eyes on the floor. We quickly learn that there's a second wrinkle, however. Rafe and his partner Nadine are also at the auction, which makes sense since Sam would have gotten the information about the second Dismas cross while working with Rafe.
Hello, Nadine. Pleasure to see you again.
Only this time, I've got the drop on you.
Well, I guess I should be glad that's not a real gun.
So the big question for these chapters becomes, why don't Rafe and or Nadine mention here that Sam was working with them and that he's lying to Nathan? For starters, it's unclear to me if Rafe and Nadine know that Sam has quit their team at this point in the story. He's worked with them for 2 years on the Avery case by this point, and so he might have developed some sort of leeway with them where disappearing for short periods of time is normal. Because of this, it's reasonable in my opinion that they don't mention Sam here with Sully, because they don't want to potentially tip him off that Sam is alive, knowing that Sully would relay it to Nate. Nadine actually seems like she's fishing for information here about Nate, probably learning to see if he's after the treasure himself or if he's aware of Sam.
But when am I finally going to meet that partner of yours? Drake?
Well, that's ex-partner. Yeah, I've been flying solo for a while now. Drake's out.
Oh, like dead out?
Oh no, more like retired. Last I heard, he settled down, got married.
This whole conversation is really well done. It fleshes out Nadine's personality some, as well as perfectly demonstrates why Sully is such a great character. The scene continues with Rafe questioning Sully as to how he found out about the Dismas cross, to which he feigns ignorance. Rafe then makes a scene and threatens Sully. This all works because neither Nathan or Sam are in the scene, so the villains reasonably can't know the full scope of the situation. This changes though once the bidding starts. Sam is shown to be clearly standing right next to the auction stage where everyone would be looking. You can even see Rafe in one of the shots. How would they not notice him? Let's pretend though that still neither Rafe nor Nadine notice Sam at that moment and it still works. Well, it stops working right here.
Scusi.
You're not supposed to be back here.
Well, neither are you. But I'll tell you what, I won't tell anyone if you don't.
You have something I want, and you're going to give it to me.
After Nathan kills the lights and Sam steals the cross, Nadine runs into Nate during her search and clearly recognizes him. The scene continues into an awful fistfight, which I'll speak more about in a second, but at no point here does Nadine bring up Sam, even though it would be her smartest move. Whether a calm conversation where she tries to loop Nathan into their scheme for the time being, or just threatening to hurt Sam, just something. If she believed that it was just Nathan and Sully doing the job, simply mentioning Sam's name would probably be enough to get a confused Nate to cooperate. You again could argue that Nadine doesn't yet know that Sam has betrayed them and so doesn't want to tip their hand. I think this is probably the only explanation possible. However, even if we accept this theory, it itself unravels later in the game when it's continuously never brought up that Sam worked for Rafe despite there being plenty of opportunities. Now, let's circle back to the fight against Nadine. I want to start by saying that I like Nadine's character a lot in Uncharted 4 and less so in the spin-off game Lost Legacy, which she co-stars in with Chloe Frazer. In Uncharted 4, she's a good complement to Rafe, and I like how the game often has them counterbalancing each other with their tempers and patience. At the auction, we see Rafe lose his cool, and Nadine sternly gets him to calm down, and then later in Madagascar, Rafe is the one who offers Nathan a clean exit from the treasure hunt despite Nadine's protests. Both Rafe and Nadine also inherited their family's legacy. With Rafe, it's the wealth, and with Nadine, it's her military organization Shoreline that serves as the enemy fodder in the game. A key trait that stitches them together is their desire to make a name for themselves that's separate from that family legacy. Rafe with Avery's treasure, and then Nadine when she begins to lose control of her company at the end of the game. Nadine's desire for a new legacy is further expanded upon in The Lost Legacy, where she struggles to decide if she wants to get Shoreline back or move forward into something new. This is actually one of the better narrative beats from that game. The motivations for these two, Rafe and Nadine, contrast well against Nathan and Sam's motivations to continue their own inherited family legacy and finish the quest their mother started by finding Avery's treasure. On top of this, both brothers also have their own individual motivations as far as legacy. Sam wants to build his, he's obsessed with it. It's why he can't walk away. Nate, on the other hand, is grappling with his existing legacy and the feeling of needing to walk away. It's great, multi-layered writing. I say all of this to emphasize that I like Nadine as a character, and I think that she's a good addition to Uncharted 4. Having said that, this fight in combination with the one that comes later in the game are a waste of time.
I gave you that one. That's not nice.
Come here.
I've seen a lot of discussion about how this fight promotes a certain agenda, and I don't agree with that. I don't believe it's entirely realistic, but it isn't as ridiculous as some people have made it out to be. The point of this fight is clearly to show what a force of nature Nadine is, which is good. She is introduced to this mission and we haven't gotten to see what she's capable of yet. The problem from the gameplay standpoint is that you have to play this fight scene even though you can't win. You can't even land more than a hit or two because of how scripted her responses are to your attacks. So the game isn't showing me through actual difficulty that she's a force to reckon with, rather it's doing it through a scripted fight that I have to lose. If the game wants to show me this way, then I'd rather it just be a cutscene. My point also isn't that this should be a difficult fight that we could win. I don't need Uncharted to be Sifu with its brutal hand-to-hand combat. It's that this fight doesn't lead to anything interesting in the gameplay or the narrative. There's no payoff later in the game. There's no understanding or tactic that Nathan has to learn in order to overcome Nadine for the second fight. It's just the same thing, except now Sam is also involved in a losing fight. The problem from the narrative standpoint is that the power levels of many of the characters in the series make no sense. This is a problem many series have because how do you continue to raise the stakes? It becomes either that the power level of the hero gets lowered or that the power of the villains get raised. Both are problematic, and I don't really have a solution other than that I think it's just unnecessary evil in storytelling, but especially with video games. I actually feel similarly to this when people bring up ludonarrative dissonance in regards to the Uncharted series. The claim that it's immersion breaking that Nathan Drake is cracking jokes after gunning down hundreds of soldiers I find silly. It's a gameplay necessity. That people cite that as a criticism when they're playing a video game where a character can do this level of climbing or even hold this position for hours is wild to me. I don't hear people claiming grip narrative dissonance, despite the climbing being just as unrealistic, if not more so in some cases. I find the broader concept of ludonarrative dissonance to be an overused criticism in game analysis. Now, while I'm skeptical of it as a general argument, I do think that the absence of narrative repercussions for significant in-game actions, such as the citywide destruction that we'll see in Madagascar, is a legitimate flaw that can and does undermine the narrative's believability and impact. More on that later. Returning to power levels, if we go off the series' history, then Nathan would be one of the strongest fighters ever. He's taken on a juiced-up warlord and mystical superhuman henchman. If the series is trying to be internally consistent, how are the writers supposed to top these? Who could ever be a match for Nathan Drake? So it makes sense that Nathan needs to be nerfed and that Nadine needs to be buffed. And the game does this in a way that makes sense to me, especially with him losing that first fight. He's been out of the game for some time and is rusty. Now couple this with Nadine having more formal military and martial arts training, and it makes sense. The second fight, which incorporates Sam into it, starts with a great scene.
Shame we're not on the same side.
Hey, there's still time.
Trust a Drake. I'm not falling for that again.
Hey, just let's talk about this. Okay, that was a bit rougher than expected. I'll just see myself out.
After everything, you think I'm just going to let you walk away?
That'd be the wise thing to do.
It feels like, okay, the fight should be in the Drake's favor now, but that doesn't happen. This is the one that makes people angry, and while it doesn't make me angry, I do agree that it's unrealistic. I think if the game was fully going for realism, then Nathan and Sam would have been able to beat Nadine together. However, I do think the scene attempts to provide an explanation for her winning by having her keep them separated and off balance, which almost works for me and I think could have worked better if it was emphasized that she was deliberately trying to waste time until her men arrived. Ultimately, Nadine kicking Nathan's ass is there to raise the narrative stakes. It's something I'm willing to accept due to the nature of video games, and because of all the problems the game's story has, it's the least impactful in my opinion. I am sure about this because Nadine herself gets nerfed in the follow-up game The Lost Legacy when she struggles in a one-on-one fight against that game's villain, Asav. This to me is the clearest indication that Naughty Dog adjusts the strength of characters based on their needs to tell the story. It's not pushing an agenda, it's not that deep. In case you forgot what brought us here, it's the auction in Italy. At the end of the fight with Nadine, Nate is thrown out of a window but manages to survive by grabbing and swinging from one of the curtains. This leads to a great moment of Nathan crashing through a window of the auction floor and regrouping with Sam, who's in the middle of a shootout. They further work their way to Sully, who has acquired a vehicle, and they all escape, hoping that the cross they just stole provides the next big clue. And of course it does, but despite how the characters talk, it's not a big reveal like out of the Da Vinci Code. It provides further context that yes, the St. Dismas Cathedral that they originally suspected 15 years ago is actually the site, but more specifically, it's the graveyard nearby.
The layout of this place is really unusual. Here's the cathedral, but the graveyard is way over here.
Rafe's been focusing on the wrong area.
Exactly.
But also not, because as we'll see, the graveyard actually just leads them back towards the cathedral. It doesn't make sense written this way, especially because Nate, Rafe, and as it turns out Sam, have all spent years thoroughly searching the area, yet no one has been able to find anything or thought to spend time in the graveyard.
The layout of this place is really unusual.
The scroll within the cross has a Saint Dismas quote, a symbol, and finally 2 dates, which correspond to the years that Henry Avery was born and supposedly died. This is what points them towards the graveyard. While Nathan and Sam are ready to go, Sully is hesitant and brings up the dreaded E word.
The biggest pirate treasure of all time is within our grasp.
I thought this was about saving Sam.
It is. But come on, it's both, right? We need the treasure so we can save Sam.
How is Elena cool with all this? Jesus, kid.
Look, it's just not that simple.
With all that you two have been through together,
She wouldn't understand this.
you are not giving her enough credit.
I can't take that chance.
Sully is absolutely right here. Nate isn't giving Elena enough credit after everything they've been through together. He says that he can't take the chance, but he's also not giving her the chance to understand. Again, this goes back to his fear of abandonment. Sam meekly tells Nathan that he should bow out because of all this, but Nate dismisses him to go call Elena and get himself more time by extending the lie. An important scene happens after this between Sam and Sully that is an important piece for why Sam never clicked for me.
Now the reception's lousy.
Something on your mind, dear?
Look, I realize it couldn't have been easy. All those years away. And I'm sorry for what happened to you. But it's not his fault.
I never said that it was.
It took a long time for him to get out of this game.
You see a gun to his head? He chose this. Okay, he's meant for this life.
You really believe that?
Why are you here, Victor?
Because somebody's got to keep an eye out for him.
Sam is wrong here. Nate is great at this, and working with Sam helps him realize that if he wants to be happy, he needs to find a middle ground with his lifestyle. But this is based on the lie that Sam tells for his own selfish reasons. Sam acts like Nathan is willingly choosing this, but also disregards how much Nathan loves him and wants to help him. He's also disregarding Nate's relationship with Elena. He hasn't asked about her once up to this point, and it's clear that he doesn't really care about her. I mean, even look at this. He looks villainous as he glares at Sully for calling him out. All this makes me wonder if perhaps Sam was originally going to be one of the game's villains, but then was changed late in development. I don't think this would have been better, but it would explain why Sam comes across as so unlikable. The Scotland chapters are centered on Nathan and Sam following the trail. Sully is still involved but is sitting out the actual exploration in favor of being ready with his plane in case they need a quick getaway. What this ends up translating to is Scotland being mostly gameplay focused. Lots of climbing, sliding, and grapple hooking, lots of firefights, lots of non-climbing platforming, and a couple puzzles. There is narrative progression at the end, but it's unfortunately mixed with more plot issues. The brothers make their way to the graveyard as instructed by the clue within the cross. They eventually locate Avery's grave by looking for specific details and are able to open a secret tunnel beneath it. Something I want to mention are the secondary background stories peppered throughout the game. These stories, found as written notes in the environment, often focus on Avery and his treasure, but told through other people's perspectives. They give character to the figures that are now long dead and also build on the game's themes. They're one of the best parts of Uncharted 4 in my opinion, and are something I found greater appreciation for on my replay. For example, in the crypt beneath Avery's grave, there's a note from one of the priests describing how Captain Avery came to the cathedral and purchased it, giving context to how Avery came to utilize the area as part of his treasure hunt. It explains why there can be a puzzle involving directing light beams into specific spots on a door beneath Avery's grave. The light beams are used to create the zodiac constellation Libra, which opens the door and points Nathan and Sam in the direction of the next clue, which is back towards the cathedral. Hopefully you caught the problem there.
There's one problem, though. Going back that way means we have to go back toward the cathedral.
And back towards Rafe.
As I've mentioned, the whole point of the clue from the auction's cross is that it showed Rafe has been looking in the wrong spot for 15 years, focusing on the cathedral rather than the graveyard. That's why he can't find anything. Now, though, it turns out that the cathedral ultimately is where they need to go, so the auction cross didn't really matter in the grand scheme of things, and was just a waste of time. Which checks out, given that there's a broken pirate ship clearly visible near the cliffs, which perhaps Rafe could miss after 15 years, but remember that both Nathan and Sam have worked with him at this cathedral for varying degrees of time. I don't buy that both of them just missed this. Rafe and Nadine are able to conveniently figure out the mystery of the cathedral themselves, but only after Nathan and Sam have figured it out too. This is without going to the graveyard and without doing any of the challenges leading up to the scale clue. They just needed to begin using explosives, something that the game deflects onto Nadine. This does have a negative consequence in that Nadine hasn't learned the message of the scales and so triggers Avery's trap that destroys the cathedral. However, this doesn't have any meaningful consequences given that both teams gain the location for the next clue, Kings Bay, Madagascar. Let's stay with Rafe and Nadine for another minute, both for something bad but also for something good. For the something bad, Nadine still doesn't bring up here that Sam was working for Rafe and her. This is a criticism that persists the entire game until the reveal. Every interaction between these characters after that first one during the auction should realistically result in Rafe or Nadine bringing it up. There's even a phone call between Nathan and Rafe in Madagascar where it's inconceivable to me that he wouldn't mention it at this point in the treasure hunt, especially given the point of the call is to try and convince Nathan to bow out of the treasure hunt. I understand that bringing this up again might be tedious, and it's the last time I'll mention it with significance, but I wanted to illustrate why this is the story's Achilles heel. The narrative hinges on no one revealing the lie to Nathan, but then presents many situations where the villains who are aware of the lie and have the motive to reveal it don't, for no reason other than that the story wouldn't work if they did. Now for the something good, there's a scene in Scotland that is actually enhanced by knowing the Sam twist. It occurs when Nadine and Rafe are discussing the blunder at the auction.
Deal with any surprises.
The auction was the cleanest way to
But
get the
instead
cross.
of going with my gut, I'll listen to you. And now we have competition.
Oh, well, I didn't think he'd show up.
Or maybe you wanted to draw him out.
Why the hell would I do that?
Because you think you need him. And maybe you do.
It's cleverly written because on a first playthrough, it seems like the he they are referring to is Nathan. Sam even reinforces this. However, playing through the scene again, it becomes clear that they're actually talking about Sam. Rafe feels like he needs Sam because he is just as obsessed with Avery's treasure as Rafe is. Narratively, the big reveal in Scotland is that Avery wasn't acting alone.
For those who prove worthy, paradise awaits. He was recruiting.
Who was recruiting?
Avery was recruiting.
Recruiting for what?
The puzzles and clues the characters are working through in the present are hints to the treasure's location, but in the past they were instead deliberately placed trials from Captain Avery to judge the worth of anyone that wanted to join him. It's contextualizing the gameplay to fit with the narrative, ludo-narrative harmony, just to sound pretentious. It's a slow realization that players get to have alongside Nate and Sam.
For those who prove worthy, paradise awaits. To those who prove false, behold your grim fate.
Yeah, well, I guess Avery was a better pirate than a poet.
This isn't Avery's.
What do you mean?
Look.
It's the Rhode Island pirate.
Thomas too.
Yeah, but it can't be him. I mean, this is clearly his sigil, but two died attacking the same treasure fleet as Avery.
Yeah, well, at least that's what the stories tell us.
If this really is Two's mark, then that means he's involved in all of this. How? Why decorate a treasure burial site?
Or build elaborate tests? I mean, either we're missing something, or Avery was really, really bored.
I also like that these trials are foreshadowed by the puzzle in the graveyard. You form the zodiac Libra, the scales of justice. Nathan wonders in his journal why Avery chose that symbol, and it's because he'll be judging potential recruits as they work through his trials. The symbolism is further reinforced with the literal scale at the end that serves as the final test in Scotland. As I mentioned, both teams of treasure hunters learn that the treasure isn't in Scotland and that the next step is Kings Bay, Madagascar. Nathan's team should have the leg up here though because of two factors. First, they have an understanding of what Avery was doing.
Then what was the point of all that, huh? Of the St. Dismas
Look,
cross?
it's like I said. I think Avery was recruiting people.
And second, they escaped with one of Avery's coins from the scale, which has an engraving of a volcano on it, matching the one found near Kings Bay, giving them a more specific area to search. Madagascar is divided into 3 sections: the semi-open world area where you're investigating abandoned structures around the volcano, the clock tower section, and finally the city escape set piece. The semi-open world segment is my least favorite of these because it doesn't feel like it belongs in Uncharted. You're driving around in objectively beautiful area, and there's some fun conversations between the characters, but that's all it does well in my opinion. Both the primary gameplay in the savannah as well as the narrative aren't doing much. You're slowly driving around, meandering from tower to tower, uncovering and identifying pirate sigils. There are gunfights in the various structures around the savannah, but combat isn't why I play Uncharted, and the amount of it here, not mixed with much else, becomes tedious. On the other hand, narratively, it feels disjointed because Nate and the characters themselves don't particularly know what they're looking for, which makes the exploration feel aimless. For example, somehow Shoreline has arrived there before you, despite not having the information on the coin and despite Sully himself saying how big the area of Kings Bay is.
Kings Bay. It was an old pirate haven back in Avery's time.
I know it well. It's a big place. Anything more specific?
Despite these feelings, I do appreciate Naughty Dog attempting something new rather than just resting on their laurels. Both of Naughty Dog's follow-up games, Uncharted: The Lost Legacy as well as The Last of Us Part 2, do this same open world thing for a chapter and do it incrementally better. In The Lost Legacy, it's set in a mountainous jungle section of India, and the explorable region is better populated with points of interest. The main objective is split across several Indian temples that are spread across the map and provide breaks from the driving with better puzzles. Additionally, in between the temples are often smaller puzzles that are part of a secondary objective that involves acquiring a special relic. The Last of Us Part 2's open section of Seattle further improves by filling the map with interesting vignettes, like the bank, the synagogue, the music store, and then actually giving meaningful rewards for exploring, like the shotgun or the extra gun holster. That game in particular benefits by being able to put crafting components or ammo as rewards for exploration as well. Uncharted's gameplay doesn't support the unlocking of special weapons or crafting components, nor should it, so it can't do this. Now, the Madagascar open world culminates in the gang arriving at the tower closest to the volcano, which happens to feature a map of all 12 tower locations across Kings Bay.
Give it a shot.
Boys, whenever you're done fondling poor St. Dismas, I think you might want to come take a look at this. Trapezoid is obviously the volcano. The crown is Kings Bay. We got ourselves a map, gentlemen.
Victor, you're a goddamn genius.
Hear that, Nate? Genius.
Yeah.
Nadine's men, of course, somehow already have this information and attempt an ambush. After dealing with Shoreline, Nathan and the crew are able to narrow it down to 2 towers, whose sigils could match the symbol found on the coin they took from Scotland. Nathan and Sully go to one of the towers and Sam the other. Here, the open world exploration gives way to more traditional linear Uncharted as we jump ahead to Nathan and Sully arriving at their tower, which is on the edge of a crowded marketplace. There are several funny conversations between the pair here that I like. The first about a lemur that's in the market.
Whoa! Hey, Sully! Look who's back!
Rabies, Nate.
And second, there's what appears to be a throwaway line from Nathan about wanting to get a dog and name it Victor, which is cute but also ends up being something we see in the game's epilogue. The first half of the clock tower section is heavy on climbing and platforming. You must maneuver around the moving gears and wooden walkways above to ring 4 small bells in a set order that matches zodiac symbols on several locks below. The clock tower here is one of the only places in the game that tries to do something more with the game's climbing and platforming. The moving gears and weight-sensitive pulleys introduce a small bit of welcome complexity by making timing something that needs to be considered. The climbing still lacks mechanical depth that would truly make this section have better gameplay, but at least it's not just moving along a linear path with breaking handholds like everywhere else in the game. To open the final part of the lock, the main clock tower bell needs to be rung. This leads to a visually exciting segment where the bell and clock tower gears begin collapsing after Nathan rings it, forcing him to frantically make his way down as everything is breaking around him. This is a cool transition, but it occurs for a dumb reason. Nathan rings the large bell by jumping on the piece of metal rather than using his grappling hook to ring it, which is what causes everything to begin breaking. The second half of the clock tower section is one big puzzle, revolving around connecting different pirate captains with their correct sigils. Players move between a panel with rotating tiles of the different sigils to side rooms that have the pirate captains' portraits hanging in them. Each portrait has a marking on it that give clues as to which direction their sigil tile needs to be facing in the central panel. Nate and Sully end up needing to send pictures of the sigils to Sam, who is en route, so that he can identify them since he's the most knowledgeable on the pirates.
Okay, so who do we have here? You know, I'm honestly shocked you don't know this stuff.
No, I do. I just want to make sure Sam knows. You know, because he likes to feel useful, that's all.
Aha, of course.
This is important not just because it helps solve the puzzle, but because it's used to explain how Rafe, Nadine, and Shoreline end up finding them again later. Going back to the puzzle, it evolves as the player progresses. 2 of the nameplates are destroyed in a fire, adding a layer of guessing, and one of the sigils, the monkey, none of the characters can recognize. I originally thought that this sigil, the monkey, would become significant later in the narrative, but it doesn't. I like this puzzle a lot despite it being easy, and I think that's because of how it builds the cast of pirates. The past explanation also makes a lot of sense. Avery was testing any potential recruits' knowledge of the pirate founders. Now, correctly arranging the sigils leads to several partial pieces of a map that, when copied and overlapped, show an island off of Madagascar where the legendary pirate colony Libertalia is located. This discovery, though, is quickly overshadowed.
Sam, did you get the photos?
Here I am. I'm calling what I thought was Sullivan's phone, and look who picks up. How you been, Nate?
Hey, Rafe.
This is the conversation I spoke about earlier, where Rafe attempts to get Nathan to give up the treasure, yet doesn't mention that Sam was working for him. What we do learn here is that Rafe has hacked all of their phones, meaning that he has been receiving the same photos, including, hopefully, the one I took of Sully. He's also been tracking their GPS location. Nate is able to relay all of this to Sam before both parties are attacked by Shoreline.
Sam, listen to me. Get off the streets right now and destroy your phone.
What's going on?
Rafe knows where we are. All right, you gotta find someplace to hide. Sam? Sam! Damn it. Hey, I'll buy you a new one.
This marks the transition into the final section of Madagascar, the escape from the city. You exit the tower and are met by Shoreline soldiers in the street and gunfire. The scene rapidly escalates from there. An armored military vehicle shows up to fire on you, and while Nate and Sully manage to get away in their jeep, the armored vehicle gives chase through the city streets. Amidst the chaos, you manage to locate Sam, who is himself being pursued by Shoreline. You jump between several of the vehicles that are pursuing Sam, ramming mercenaries off motorbikes and occasionally being dragged behind the truck. There's a small scene where you have to crawl out of your overturned Jeep as it's catching fire, and the final part sees the return of the armored vehicle that's been hounding you, and here you're allowed to finally shoot and destroy it, something you've been unable to do up to that point. This whole set piece is pretty heavily scripted, but is still fun and one of the highlights of the game for me. Having said that, I want to circle back to ludonarrative dissonance because what we just witnessed is really the only place in the game where I agree it's present. What we just witnessed in Madagascar is crazy, and it's something that didn't really hit me until I stopped and thought about this line that Sully says.
Hey, Nate.
Yeah?
We can never, ever come back to this city.
Add it to the list.
The sheer scale of the collateral damage from these events in Madagascar during this chapter would be international news, especially because there are many witnesses. I can't imagine a scenario where Madagascar's government or some international policing agency doesn't get involved after this. While the destruction does create exciting gameplay moments, the narrative doesn't acknowledge, outside of that short exchange between Sully and Nate, the long-term damage and consequences for this place. This isn't a problem when it's jungle ruins or isolated Scottish cathedrals, but this is a densely populated city. This is the disconnect between gameplay and narrative that to me is a valid point for ludonarrative dissonance. Uncharted is obviously meant to replicate action movies. I understand this, and I'm not so dense as to completely write off the set pieces like Madagascar. But at the same time, Uncharted 4 is trying to be different than the other games in the series. It wants to be taken more seriously. Which I should say is something that really clicks for me, even though I also really like the bombastic action of the original trilogy. Uncharted can work with either tone, it just needs to be consistent with that tone. However, even with that minor instance of dissonance, I still enjoy the city escape as well as the scene that comes afterwards when the gang discover Elena waiting for them in their hotel room.
How's the Malaysia job going, Nate? Seems like you're a hair off course.
Elaine, it's not what it looks like.
Really? Because what it looks like is that you're searching for Henry Avery's buried treasure.
Elena is rightfully upset, not just that Nathan has been lying to her for weeks about the Malaysia job, which she picked up on during a previous phone call, but also that he introduces his brother this way. Elena has done nothing wrong up to this point, only encouraged Nathan to relax on his restrictiveness about doing jobs. He might have this restriction because of his decisions in the prior games in regards to Elena, but that doesn't justify not communicating his current feelings of restlessness. Even here in this scene, he won't be honest with her, deflecting that he's only trying to find the treasure because Sam needs help rather than because he wants to.
No, I wanted to, but how could I?
I don't know, just say it.
I had to protect you.
That is bullshit, Nate. You just didn't have the nerve to face me again.
I knew you would react like this.
How would you react? You lied to me for weeks. If you were killed, I wouldn't have even known about it. And now you have a brother. Who are you?
Come on. I'm me. Come on, it's me. It's different this time.
Oh my God.
I have to save him. I don't even care about the treasure.
The look on your face when you walked into this room. If you're done lying to me, then you should stop lying to yourself.
Hey, what are you doing? Go after her.
We're not done here.
Well, maybe we should be.
What are you saying?
I'm saying maybe there's a smarter way to save Sam.
Such as?
Such as we give him a new identity. We put him in hiding somewhere.
He's been in prison for 15 years. He's not going into hiding.
Okay, fine. You go after your wife. Sam and I will head off for Libertalia.
Without me? Come on, you'll get both of you killed.
Really? Kid, I've been doing this for a hell of a long time. I think I might be able to
Hey, you want to be helpful, Sullivan? Go keep an eye on her.
Whatever you say.
This should be a particularly powerful moment for fans of the series because I would imagine most of them have never had a lower opinion of Nathan than at this moment right here. He's throwing everything away for Sam. He's causing all of this. And yes, Nathan has his issues, but Sam is the catalyst, and he doesn't seem to care about the damage he's doing. This becomes even more apparent as we continue. The brothers have taken a boat out to an island near where they think the last clue is directing them. This chapter is not quite to the scale of the semi-open world savanna in Madagascar, but it is still a meandering exploration section, this time with no combat and mostly just climbing. There's one puzzle here that I enjoyed. It involves rotating a series of orbs to match shadows being cast, getting increasingly difficult as additional factors mess with the rotation. The other highlight were the notes and environmental moments we find that detail the expedition to Libertalia made by Jonathan Burns, the grandson of Joseph Burns, the man from the prison cell in Panama. I really like this secondary storyline about this voyage, and we'll talk about it later in the video. Narratively, the chapter's goal is to demonstrate that Sam is becoming increasingly irritated by Nathan's feelings of guilt. At the beginning, he's trying to gently nudge him towards appreciating where they're at and telling Nathan that Elena will get over it.
Listen, little brother. She will get over it. I mean, we bring back a treasure like that, anyone would.
I don't know. Maybe I've done this one too many times.
Which illustrates how little Sam knows about Elena, or even Nathan for that matter. As the pair explore the small islands, Sam's comments start to become more pointed.
Oh, I'm distracted now.
What's that supposed to mean?
Nothing. Shall we?
Yeah, let's.
And finally, after being directed towards the potential pirate colony in the distance, Sam outright gets angry with Nate over his reaction.
It's gotta be it. Libertalia.
That's optimistic considering everything.
You know, it is just us here. You're allowed to feel just a little bit of excitement over this.
I'll get excited when we get Alcazar's noose off your neck. Come on.
Okay.
What?
Sam clearly knows that at some point he's going to have to come clean to Nathan about the Alcazar lie, but likely hoped that the thrill of the adventure as well as the treasure at the end would be enough to overshadow his lies. Remember, he thinks Nate is meant for this life, just like him. He's unwilling to accept anything else. All of this further cemented the bad taste in my mouth for Sam. His relationship with Nate is coming to a boil, and it's symbolically represented with the approaching storm. We see that shoreline have begun approaching the same island, and we get a really strong transition scene here. The lightning cracking in the distance, and then 5 seconds of black before returning us to that opening scene of the game, with the brothers driving their boat through the storm as mercenaries shoot at them from other boats. Just like in the opening, they're rammed and knocked overboard, and we now move into the game's somewhat arduous final act. Nathan's washed ashore amidst the storm, alone other than the ominous mountain peak looming in the distance. He's rightfully worried that he's pushed Elena too far, disappointed Sully, and potentially lost Sam. All for this obsession with the treasure. It's Nate at his lowest. This strong narrative setup is unfortunately brought down by the boring gameplay. Nathan slowly makes his way down the shoreline towards the peak. The climbing here is impacted by the rain, meaning the surfaces are wet, causing Nathan to often slip, and he's unable to leap from handhold to handhold like he normally can. While potentially interesting, the game doesn't do anything with this idea other than make the climbing take longer. Thankfully, it's brief, as eventually Nathan slips and falls, awakening again in the morning after the storm has passed. Something I want to mention is that visually this early island environment might be my favorite in the game, with the greens, blues, and indigos of the mountains and the fog crawling over the peaks. It's beautiful. The game does a really great job of recreating the subtle changes of the weather or time of day as you're playing. It's something I was continuously impressed by. After waking up, Nathan sees a flashlight flashing in the distance, which is a nice callback to when he was in the orphanage all those years ago.
Sam!
There's a pretty good larger combat encounter on the way to finding Sam, as well as a new climbing tool is introduced, the spike. I don't have much to say about the spike because it doesn't substantially change up the climbing. It's a tool that can only be used on specific wall surfaces and just creates a temporary climbing point. The narrative quickly shifts back to the growing fracture between Nathan and Sam when they do regroup.
Hear me out. Crazy suggestion. Let's go down there and at least secure one of Rafe's boats.
The boats can wait. You want to know what we're doing here? We are buying my life back. Okay, and we're gonna do that by stepping into that jungle and finding Libertalia.
Have you even seen any signs of a massive pirate colony? Because I sure the hell haven't.
It's a little late to start developing doubts, don't you think?
Look, can we at least acknowledge the chance that maybe Avery's idea for a secret pirate utopia didn't pan out? And maybe we're just swept up in this fantasy, when instead we should be looking for a real way to save you.
I'm gonna scour this island inch by inch if I have to until I find that treasure. Now, if you're confused about what you're doing here, then you can go home, Nathan.
Wait. I can go home? Are you kidding me? Do you have any idea what I put on the line to get you here?
About what I put on the line, okay? The last 15 years of my life.
This has nothing to do with that.
It has everything to do with that.
It's wild to me that anyone could still like Sam after seeing his behavior. Suggesting that Nathan give up despite everything that he's already sacrificed in order to help is incredibly selfish and unlikable, even if you don't already know the twist that he's lying about everything. The brothers largely brush past finishing this conversation for now because they find ruins nearby, but the tone is much colder between them as they explore here. There's no banter, and they both keep mostly quiet outside of directions or noting their observations. This changes, though, once they discover Libertalia.
What do you see?
You just want to hear me say it, don't you?
Really want to hear you say it.
All right. Libertalia.
Libertalia! The long-lost legendary pirate utopia discovered after 300 years by one Samuel Drake. And his younger, slightly less charming brother who happened to be tagging along for the ride. You know, I always knew you'd make something of yourself one day.
Yeah, just so you know, it's not my first lost city.
Just enjoy the moment.
Libertalia is a great location. It's got that abandoned and overgrown environment that Naughty Dog has perfected, and the first time playing the game, it's actually quite eerie. Each of the Uncharted games up to this point have had a supernatural element to their ancient cities, and so I think many players, myself included, were on edge for the entirety of the Libertalia and then later New Devon sections of the game, waiting for some reveal. Perhaps Pirates of the Caribbean-style undead pirates would emerge from the foggy ruins. The game even teases something creepy happened.
Huh. Horse bones.
They're still tied up. Like they were abandoned. But why?
Don't know. Maybe people left in a hurry.
Or they were taken away.
Yeah, something isn't kosher here. Okay, so where did they go?
Pirate ghosts?
This is all a red herring. Nothing supernatural occurred in the pirate colony, which I think was a decision made to help with the game's realism. Additionally, the fact that there's nothing mystical actually gets tied in during the final encounter with Rafe and strengthens the game's narrative, so it's a good thing. This first section of Libertalia is all about exploring, documents to read, optional conversations, and great environmental storytelling. There are several little moments through this first street, like the attempt at a sword duel between Nate and Sam, or Sam posing in the stocks outside the prison. The most significant of these is a cutscene where Nathan and Sam take a moment to sit and reflect in a worn-down tavern.
No, but I mean, what would our lives have been like if we hadn't started by chasing these people who've been dead for hundreds of years? You think it would resemble more of a normal life?
Normal. You've got everybody gathered around the table for Thanksgiving, exchanging all the baby photos, something like that. No, thank you. Not for me. I like the hand we've been dealt.
These are all completely optional. I liked this, but admittedly this section is probably quite boring if you're not into these quiet moments because there's no combat, puzzle, or climbing present. However, it's balanced out by a long series of shootouts through the dilapidated buildings of Libertalia right after. Shoreline forces have arrived ahead of Rafe and Nadine to secure the area. Nate and Sam find what remains of a large-scale battle between the colonists and soldiers outside of the city's treasury, and within they find it picked clean outside of the portraits of the founders with the word thief written across each.
Okay, so we know that there was fighting outside.
Yeah, and inside.
You think the colonists stole it?
No. I think they were trying to reclaim what was theirs. Look, there's Avery. 2 founders of Libertalia. All marked with the word thief. Not murderer, not tyrant.
Thief. So by the time the colonists busted in here, treasure was already gone.
Yeah, because these guys had already taken it for themselves. Pirates will be pirates, right?
Pirates will be pirates.
This leads to the brothers learning that there's a second colony on the island, New Devon, where all of the pirate founders built their own lavish residences and retreated to once things began falling apart in Libertalia. Nathan and Sam are able to locate New Devon in the distance after climbing a nearby watchtower, but are forcefully assaulted by Shoreline as well as Nadine herself. This leads to that second fight with her I went through earlier, and then the reveal that Sam has been lying to Nathan about Alcazar. Sam pushes Nate from the cliff in order to protect him from Rafe, which, given the force that his head hits that rock with, Nathan would likely be dead, but instead is only knocked out and gets swept away with the current. The game flashes back to young Nathan and Sam, and we finally get the continuation of the other scene that A Thief's End opened with, the brothers tracking down their mother's belongings. The chapter is story-heavy, focused on the brothers searching the buyer's home, with very little gameplay outside of walking around and inspecting artifacts. Narratively, the importance here is that we learn where the brothers' obsession with adventure, and in particular with Avery's treasure, comes from. It was something their mother, Cassandra, was researching for a rich antique collector named Evelyn. This is of course Evelyn's home, and she confronts the brothers, initially thinking that they're robbers. This is quickly resolved, and there's immediately a bonding between the three characters over their shared love and respect for Cassandra.
Your mother was the most brilliant historian I have ever met. We could have accomplished so much together. But then her illness... I'm sorry.
No, it's all right.
This bonding is what plants the seed for finding Avery's treasure. It's about finishing their mother's work as a way to feel connected to her. It's their legacy. This is great storytelling, and is something that I wished got further developed with conversations between the brothers in the present, because it's shown that as adults they have diverged in this belief of what their legacy is. While Nathan is excited and longs for adventure, after the realization that he potentially lost Elena for good this time, he expresses the desire to walk away multiple times, and genuinely only seems to be going along with it to protect his brother. This gets further cemented in the epilogue, where we see he has turned to a legal and archaeological approach to treasure hunting, more in line with his mother as opposed to being a fortune hunter. Sam, on the other hand, still sees treasure hunting as his legacy. This obsession is reinforced in The Lost Legacy as well, because he complains at the end about the decision to donate the artifact to a museum as opposed to trying to sell it. Despite wanting to feel connected to his mother, Sam's actually much closer to Evelyn in A Thief's End. You can learn through notes that she effectively gave up her family, including being a presence in her own son's life in order to pursue adventure and treasure. It's reflected in her house, a hoard of ancient and priceless artifacts, but ultimately cold and empty of meaningful connections. Evelyn realizes this at the end because, again, notes indicate that she tried to reconnect with her son and even granddaughter, but it was too late. She would have died alone had it not been for Sam and Nate, just like in a few chapters from now, Sam would have died alone had it not been for Nathan. Again, this is great storytelling because it's understandable why Sam is still stuck in that mindset after being in prison for 13 years, and it's understandable why Nathan no longer is. In this scene, we also learn Nathan and Sam's real last name is Morgan, and we see the moment where they change it. Evelyn had preemptively called the police when she believed the brothers were intruders. However, before she can call them off, this happens.
Are you okay?
Holy shit. Hey. Hey. Hey.
Sam?
Ma'am? The police. You all right?
Wait, we have to do something.
Yeah, we need to get the hell out of here.
Can't just leave her here.
There's nothing we can do for her. All right, we have to run. If the cops find us here, then this...
Ma'am?
Nathan! We gotta go. Right now.
This is weak storytelling. Evelyn just happens to have a heart attack before being able to talk to the police or be able to help Nathan and Sam further.
It can't be a coincidence.
Sam decides that their best course of action is to run, and they're kids, so I'm willing to accept that they would think that, but there's no shot they would get blamed for her death. She has no markings, only her fingerprints are on the gun, and an autopsy would show that she had a heart attack. Everything has to play out this way, though, because there needs to be a reason for Nathan and Sam to change their name and to begin their adventures together.
Mom believed that Sir Francis Drake had heirs. Who's to say he didn't?
You're serious, aren't you?
Nathan, we were meant for this. And I promise, you and me together, we're gonna go far. So what do you say? Nathan Drake?
The scene then transitions to Nathan in the present. He was telling the story of the flashback to Elena as she patched him up after his fall. Nathan attempts to explain why he's never brought Sam up before, that it was too painful. Respectfully, I don't really buy this, and so ultimately the long-lost, unmentioned brother doesn't get an adequate explanation, in my opinion. We learn that Elena was able to track Nate down with Sully's help and by following the sound of gunfire, which is ridiculous given that Sully didn't even know where the Libertalia Island was, but whatever. The point here is to have a contrast to what just happened with Sam. When the chips are down, Elena and Sully are always there for him, although in an emotional moment, Elena states that she almost wasn't this time.
Thanks.
Sure.
No, I mean, thanks for saving me. Again.
I almost didn't this time.
Right.
This sets the tone for the next couple of chapters as Nathan and Elena make their way to New Devon to locate Sam. It's tense, and while they are able to have some light banter and discussion about the engineering feats of the pirates, these are distractions. It's clear that both are thinking about their relationship, and that's the point, to have both the characters and player sitting in the awkward silence. There's only one combat scene here in order to emphasize the silence. The focus is on their relationship, which comes up a number of times during the chapter.
You said you almost didn't come back.
Well, I couldn't leave when you were clearly in over your head. And, you know, there's that whole marriage vow thing.
For better or worse.
Yeah. You know, even if you think that you're protecting me, you don't have a right to shut me up. No matter what it is, you're supposed to come to me so that we can work through it together as a team.
I know that. Really, I do. It's just...
You know, we should stay focused. There'll be time for this later.
I wasn't trying to protect you. It's just, I made a promise that I was done with this life.
We both did.
Yeah, but I broke it. I didn't tell you because I was afraid.
Afraid of what?
Of losing you. I guess I was, protecting myself. You know?
These are all great and feel authentic. It makes you feel for both characters, even if at the core Nathan is wrong. Not wrong that he has these feelings, but wrong that he's not communicating them. Elena has proven time after time that she's understanding. The pair work their way through the jungle, eventually arriving to find disturbing sights decorating the entrance of New Devon.
Well, I guess that's one way to quash a rebellion.
I have to wonder if this was always the plan.
What, to slaughter all the colonists?
No, to lure them here in hopes of finding a utopia, only to rob them of everything that they have.
We are dealing with a bunch of pirates.
Well, that is pretty diabolical, even for pirates.
They find a way up the stone wall and quickly learn that the streets of New Devon are flooded and many of the pirate founders' mansions are in ruin. They leapfrog their way through several of the mansions before arriving at Thomas II's, Avery's second-in-command, for what I think is one of the best scenes in the entire series.
Good lord.
Looks like we found the party.
Looks like we're a little late. Hey, Nate. Check it out.
It's another sigil. Oh my god.
What?
It's them. Elena, these are the pirate captains that founded Libertalia. So these guys sparked a full-scale revolt when they claimed the treasure for themselves. Now, they took care of the colonists, but then they had to deal with each other. And I'm guessing things got pretty messy. So Avery and two invite them up here to, what was it?
Abandon our animosities.
Abandon the animosities. Avery makes a grand toast. For God and liberty! Arg, ahoy, mateys, all that. And they all take a swig. Except these two. And just like that, all the treasure of Libertalia becomes the sole possession of two men. These are some of history's greatest pirates, and they all perished in an instant at this very table.
It's incredible.
Elena is seeing, almost for the first time again, that this is who Nate is, and that yes, he loves her, but he also loves this, and he's good at it. It's something that he has been suppressing because of how much he loves her. This scene informs the decision that she makes at the end of the game. This moment with the pirates is made even more impactful if you've been finding and reading the various notes sprinkled around Libertalia and New Devon up to this point. While greed is ultimately what brought about the pirate colony's downfall, it wasn't originally what fueled its start. Elena speculates that perhaps ripping off the colonists was the goal all along, but I don't believe that's true, if only for the simple fact of how much building these colonies would have cost right up front. From building the homes, treasury, and various elevators, collecting the building materials, to even killing the East India Company regiments that were in pursuit, it makes no sense if the idea of the pirate utopia was a pyramid scheme right from the beginning. Avery and his fellow captains genuinely did want to build a paradise for themselves and others who wanted a free society. Libertalia was built on the idea that all the pirates there were equal and would pool all of their treasure and wealth together into the treasury. This worked for several years. But problems eventually crept in. The founders became too strict and paranoid. We can find a law posted in the town square of Libertalia requiring colonists to fight in times of battle. There are a series of notes about secret meetings the colonists had to discuss their dissatisfaction. The notes indicate many people went missing after these meetings, and so the colonists eventually planned an attack on the treasury to take their money back. Nathan and Sam found the results of this attack outside the treasury. The colonists were successful in their attack, but learned that Avery and the other pirate founders had already taken the treasure, hence why Thief was painted on each portrait. The colonists send away their women and children before attempting an assault on New Devon, but were unsuccessful with this one. Many of their bodies were thrown into a mass grave, placed in the gibbets outside of the Founders' colony, or used as part of Avery's own personal booby traps, which we'll see shortly. With the colonists largely dead, of course the Founders soon began to turn on each other. Around New Devon, you can find several letter exchanges and journal pages about the perceived and literal attacks that the Founders began against each other. Eventually, Avery had his second-in-command, Thomas II, invite all of the Founders to dinner with the promise of making peace, only to poison them, leaving all the treasure for Avery and II and bringing us back to the present. As you can likely imagine, Avery and II ultimately end up turning on each other. Outside the pirate dinner party, there's a partially burned note from Thomas II that indicates he regretted betraying the rest of the Founders and believed Avery had gone crazy. II gathered his men for an attack, but Avery responded by blowing the nearby dam and flooding New Devon, leading it to its current condition. Thomas II survives the flooding and was right about Avery. He had become quite paranoid, as we see in the next chapter, which has my favorite title in the game with Avery's Descent.
Whoa.
What the hell is this? This is creepy.
The hands that stole from me. Wow, Avery's not even pretending to be sane at this point.
I don't like this place.
Me either. Let's get out of here.
See, once he flooded New Devon, Avery had all of the treasure brought through an escape tunnel that he had built within his residence. Not content with merely a secret tunnel, however, the pirate captain booby-trapped the tunnel in order to make sure he couldn't be followed. Using the mini bodies of the dead colonists, Avery created hundreds of trip mines and placed them through the tunnels. There's actually great misdirection about this earlier in the tunnels when Nathan and Elena hear an explosion.
What the hell was that?
My money's on Nadine's men. They'll use any excuse to use dynamite.
It'd have to be pretty dumb to use it in here.
Yeah, they're pretty dumb.
While narratively the mummy bombs showcase Avery's paranoia, they are less successful in terms of gameplay. The whole segment is just rolling when you see the on-screen indicator and doesn't have any evolution in their usage. The tunnel exit culminates in Nathan and Elena cutting themselves free from a trap and then escaping as mummies light up around them. There's then a brief fake-out about Elena being seriously hurt.
Lena? Hey! Hey! Lena, come on! Lena!
My hero.
Oh, no, you didn't do that. No! That's not funny!
Oh, you have done much worse.
Gosh, you gave me a goddamn heart attack.
Oh, let me listen. Sounds good to me.
Now, earlier I said that the beginning island environments of Libertalia might be my favorite visuals in the game, but I lied. It's actually this chapter's ship graveyard. It's mainly a combat chapter, with gunfights across the cliffs, beaches, and remaining husks of the pirate ships. There's a segment where Nathan is pestered by another armored vehicle like the one in Madagascar, except this time you're on foot as it's chasing you through the streets of the harbor town. It eventually gets dealt with, and we get the return of Sully, who has landed his plane in the nearby harbor. This means the gang's all together: Nathan, Elena, Sam, who they rescued from shoreline in the ship graveyard, and now Sully. This leads to the first of two important narrative moments for the chapter.
Good, I hope all that ruckus didn't attract any attention.
Whoa. Sorry. What are we doing?
What do you think we're doing? We're getting the hell off of this rock.
Right, we could do that. Or we could head in that direction, which is a shortcut.
Shortcut to what?
To Avery's treasure.
Oh, wow.
I mean, Rafe's got to go all the way around, but we can
Hey,
just...
screw Rafe.
Hey, Victor, with all due respect, maybe just
You
leave
just
this...
don't know when to quit.
Look, we're all here for the same reason, right? Right?
We didn't come after the treasure. We came after you.
And I appreciate that. I do. But we're good. And we've got the lead for now. We can do this. Nathan, come on. Huh? Look around. Okay? Avery scuttled every last ship on this island. You know why?
Because he was hell-bent on keeping his treasure.
Exactly.
No matter the cost to the others around him.
Because he didn't want anyone to follow him. No offense to these guys. But they don't get it.
Actually, Sam, they do. They really do.
Okay.
Trust me, they've seen this kind of obsession before. Sam, we're not those kids anymore. We're not. And we got nothing to prove.
This is an exceptionally written moment, from Elena's comment of no matter the cost to the others around him, echoing Sam's behavior, to Nathan trying to pull Sam back from the path that he's going down, a path that Nathan himself is familiar with. Sam reluctantly agrees to leave with them, but goes back on this after he's separated from the group a bit later on. Sam can't let it go, which is frustrating and careless, but is also understandable and not unlike Nathan himself in the previous games. In that last scene, you can see in Sam's eyes that he's still that kid that wants to make something of himself. It's also foreshadowed earlier in the game that Sam is going to do this.
Look at all this. You don't commit your entire life to something just to walk away from it at the end.
Yeah, well, things don't always go as planned.
Nathan, Elena, and Sully go after Sam but are separated themselves when the wagon that they were using as a step gets destroyed. Narratively, it makes sense that you would want the finale to be with just Nathan and Sam, as the game is primarily about their relationship and shared obsession. Having said that, the in-game reason of the wagon breaking and that's why Elena and Sully can't continue on with Nate is ridiculous. Nathan retraces Sam's footsteps towards the mountain, and during this chapter we get the conclusion to the second story that was running in the game's background, the story of Jonathan Burns. His story, like many of the others the game tells, is one of obsession, finding the treasure that his father had been imprisoned for. Jonathan Burns is the reason the cross in Panama was already broken and empty. He'd taken the clue for himself. So obsessed with finding it and completing his father's legacy, Burns grew to be at odds with his expedition crew as they began to question his decisions. He leaves one crew member for dead, shoves another off a cliff, and finally shoots one in the back. Here now on the approach to the mountain, we find Jonathan Burns' body and his final thoughts, expressing a hint of doubt for if the journey was worth it. This circles back to one of the game's major themes, knowing when to walk away, and it gets continued with a scene between Rafe and Nadine here.
Sam just stole our goddamn boat. He's headed for Avery's ship. Come on.
Let him. We're done.
We're done.
Most of my men are dead, Rafe. And those who aren't have already left.
Can you see that? The end is literally in sight.
That maniac pirate of yours has rigged this entire cave. I'm not setting foot on his ship.
Nadine, if you cut and run right now, the loss of all your men, everything that we've done, is for nothing.
We have millions in gold right here. I'd say that plus our lives is something.
No wonder so many of your men abandoned you.
Excuse me?
We're on the verge of making history here, and you're willing to just walk off with a pittance, a fraction of what Sam's gonna get from that boat.
If he can walk away from that ship alive, he can have it. Hell, I'd say he's earned it. God knows you didn't.
It reveals that Nadine is ready to walk away, but Rafe isn't, and has bought the loyalty of Nadine's men. This is fine. Narratively, it's really just to give Nadine a reason to betray Rafe in the final encounter and to make her exit. See, this quest for Avery's treasure started with Nathan, Sam, and Rafe in that Panamanian prison all those years ago, and it's fitting that it ultimately finishes with just those three. It's the same reason that neither Elena or Sully are present for the final segment on Avery's ship.
You and your brother, though. Right from the start, you took advantage of my generosity. You tried to cut me out, and it's high time you learn. What are you doing?
Now you give me your gun.
Nadine?
I won't ask you again.
You are being profoundly stupid right now.
Look over there.
Nadine, stop screwing around. Jesus!
I said look!
Okay, it's a couple of skeletons. So what?
I don't know as much about history as you boys, but I've got a pretty good idea who those two are.
Well, enlighten us.
It's Avery and two. They killed each other.
Good for them. What's the point?
Everyone obsessed with this treasure gets what they deserve.
So what, you're just leaving us here to die?
Oh, I'm just leaving. Whether you die or not, I don't really care.
Nadine, wait.
So long, Rafe.
Nadine!
Both Nadine and Nathan are ready to walk away, but Sam and Rafe aren't. Rafe in particular is so caught up in his own legacy that he would rather die sword-fighting Nathan than help rescue Sam and potentially live.
Seriously, Rafe, this is insane, even for you.
You want to hear insane? Nathan Drake raced a madman and his entire army to the steps of Shambhala.
That's Jesus!
Nathan Drake found the lost city in the middle of the Rub al-Khali desert.
God damn it. Come on, we can get out of here together.
Nathan Drake discovered the fabled El Dorado. You know what, Nate? Underneath all the bravado, you're just a sad little boy with delusions of grandeur.
You want the treasure, Rafe? It's all yours.
After killing Rafe, Nathan attempts to rescue Sam, but to no avail.
All I ever wanted to do was find this treasure with you.
Sam,
We did it. We did it, brother, okay?
it's all right. There's gotta be another way.
Nathan, you gotta go.
There's gotta be some.
Gotta go!
This time, there is no other way.
Come on, Nathan, I gotta know you made it out all right.
Sam is finally realizing what's important right here as he's about to die. Luckily, Nathan utilizes a nearby cannon to blow a hole in the ship, flooding it and making it easier to lift the pillar that's pinning Sam. The brothers swim out of the cave as Avery's ship begins to sink next to them. Elena and Sully find the brothers, and as they begin the journey home aboard Sully's plane, there's a lingering shot of the hooked peak on the island. Both brothers are looking at it, and while Nate happily looks away, Sam doesn't. All of the game's major themes, obsession, greed, one's legacy, and walking away, all meet and get tied together nicely, leading to a much more personal ending than anything we got in the previous games. Or at least that's what I would have said if other parts of the ending didn't go against these themes. I want to return to something Nadine said as she left, how everyone that's obsessed with Avery's treasure gets what they deserve. Nadine's right about this. A Thief's End is about obsession and how it can be a poison. Avery, too, the other pirate founders, Rafe, Jonathan Burns, Evelyn are all obsessed with treasure, and it leads to a lonely and oftentimes violent death. This obsession would have killed Sam had it not been for Nathan, and it would have killed Nathan had it not been for Elena and Sully. Nathan's ending is about pulling himself back from the ledge and finding that same sense of adventure through better channels. It does this very well. Sam's ending, however, goes against this.
I just kind of thought that after we found Avery's treasure, I'd be satisfied. Instead, I've kind of left with this strange feeling of
emptiness.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, you know, as thrilling as the next adventure might be, in the end, I always left with that same feeling. And sometimes you just gotta choose what you're going to keep and what you're going to let go.
Well, I guess I'm just not there yet.
Sam still wants more adventure. He just nearly got himself and his brother killed, but doesn't seem to learn the lesson everyone has been shouting at him. He's still obsessed with finding the next treasure. It makes some sense for his character given that he hasn't gotten the experience that Nathan has, but it still defeats the purpose of this game's bigger narrative. Instead, Sam and Sully become partners, which seems more like fan fiction when a big part of the game's narrative was that these two didn't see eye to eye. The Nathan and Elena portion of the ending is much better, but also doesn't completely stick the landing for me either. Sam managed to save some of Avery's gold pirate currency and slips some into Elena's jacket pocket, which is a nice callback to the auction where Sam thinks that he's the better pickpocket. Elena uses some of the money to buy the salvage company that Nathan works at.
Well, heard this rumor about a salvage job off the coast of Malaysia, and I thought it'd be right up our alley.
No, honey, look, we barely got out of Libertalia alive.
Yeah.
Hey, taking an illegal job? You know what that leads to.
Who said it was illegal? Look. This came in this morning.
Is this legit?
Yeah. Some of my old contacts out there, they work their magic with the Malaysian permit office.
What happened to just living a normal life?
I think in our attempt to lead a normal life, we may have oversteered. Look, when I was on that island, I missed the adventure. I missed us. And so now we have a chance to do what we love.
This makes perfect sense as the next step for these two, but what doesn't work in my opinion is Elena's discussion on their attempts to live a normal life. We don't see Elena overcorrecting here. She seems happy. She encourages Nathan to do an illegal job even. This isn't to say that Elena isn't overcorrecting, just that we don't see it like we do with Nate. There's a disconnect between what's told to us versus shown. Regardless, the pair begin excitedly discussing their future legal adventures. We then get a jump forward in time at least 15 years with an epilogue that not only shows us how those legal adventures turned out, but more importantly introduces us to the pair's teenage daughter Cassie and their dog Vicky, who's named after Victor Sullivan. Players take control of Cassie as she walks around their house trying to locate her parents. There's some great heartwarming moments here, like a photo album with various pictures of Cassie with the characters, or a letter from Sully where he shares that both he and Sam have quit smoking. Eventually, Cassie finds the keys to her father's locked cabinet and she discovers all of his mementos from these past adventures. It comes full circle when she finds her grandma Cassandra's journal just like Nathan did as a kid and begins looking through it. There's this mischievous side eye she does before she starts that is a great characterization. She finds a picture of her parents and Sully sitting on chests of gold with Nathan holding a shotgun. Nathan and Elena eventually surprise Cassie, and like any kid would, she wants to hear the stories.
Okay, look, if you guys were into some shady stuff, it's totally cool. But I think I'm old enough to know about it, right?
Old enough. How old are you again?
Haha, funny. Well, wait, what'd Francis Drake look like? Was it gross?
Actually, he wasn't in there. Yeah, just his journal with a map to El Dorado.
The City of Gold?
That's the legend. Turns out it was just a statue. A cursed statue.
No way, seriously?
Yeah, seriously. But I'll get back to that.
And that's it. It's an emotional send-off for both Nathan and Elena, and even writing about it now makes me a bit sad that these characters are done. I do truly hope this series leaves them alone though, that Uncharted is able to forge ahead without them, something that the Lost Legacy shows is possible even if I don't think it's as compelling as A Thief's End. It's been almost 10 years since Uncharted 4, and I would guess that it's only a matter of time before the series returns, so I'm cautiously excited to see where it's going to go from here, particularly with the gameplay. The hope is that it will not only incorporate lessons from modern games like Breath of the Wild or Naughty Dog's own The Last of Us Part 2, but innovate on them. In terms of the story, I think Naughty Dog is on the right track. Despite all of its problems, A Thief's End is still my favorite game in the series because of how successfully it adds depth to the characters and story. Putting aside any questions I have about the series' future, Uncharted 4 is important. It's a relic of the past, but that's not a bad thing. We put relics in a museum for a reason. As always, thanks for watching.